You're going to feel pressure if you're outcome orientated. You're going to feel pressure if it's about the 3 points and this is the big moment and we've got to deliver. That's when you can go under.
When I get frustrated is when we've done something different or we haven't got the group where we wanted them to be mentally.
It's an exploration of mind. It's not trying to extract and get something from it in a quick fix. Players who are genuinely interested in that exploration are the ones who get the best results.
It doesn't matter if you're 35 or 25 or 18, comments when you're just about to go to a pressure game or at half time can be damaging.
If pressure was a thing, everyone would feel it, yeah?
You learn from every manager and every coach you've worked with. So, and I've played under a lot of managers, and yeah, I remember one particular manager who was in the category of training for too long, too many meetings, overpowering people. I remember one young player coming into the club on loan from a Premiership club, and he came in and he played so well. He was brilliant, and then the coaches and managers started over-coaching him, giving him too much information, and he just really dipped in his performance. And I remember pulling him one day and I said, listen, you've just got to play your own game. I'll just go back, just come in and just play like you were doing. And he said, yeah, but the gaffer's telling me. And I remember I was only, say, 31, 32. I said, I know that. I said, but you've got to take the bits of information you need, but you've got to get back to kind of putting it away. And that's what he needed. And I remember in that situation, and everybody really respected this manager and was desperate to do well for him, but it was just so much information. So yeah, just getting that balance right between you want to go into the pitch and you want to have the detail of the player you're playing against, you know, the set play marking and things which are important, but things happen on the pitch, you know. And at the moment, you know, I have a couple of the experienced players who I'll bring in on a Thursday and say, listen, this is the way we think Birmingham are going to play, wherever it is. But it might change. It might change. And in the training tomorrow, I'm going to cover these couple of points. But in the game, if it changes, you can manage it on the pitch, you know, for us. Because if I cover everything tomorrow, the team won't function properly. So I will use kind of a leadership group to get those points over. And I've got some great players at the moment. That's why I always like good senior players, good role models, to get that message over. So I learned that definitely with managers, and yeah, I think it's just that balance, and you can just remember the way managers spoke to you, how it could affect you. And I remember one manager, he was a young manager that came into the club, and he was really critical with the senior players, and it was almost he wanted to show everybody that I'm the boss. And some of the things he said, I was like, oh, wow. And it was almost, it doesn't matter if you're 35 or 25 or 18, comments when you're just about to go to a pressure game or at half time can be damaging, you know. And I remember kind of saying at the end of the season that, you know, when I was captain at the time, that, you know, some of the way you spoke to the senior players, it's impacted on them. And obviously he was a young manager himself and he learned. But I remember feeling that. So it doesn't matter if someone's 35 or 20, it really doesn't matter. You've got to get the way you deliver your message right, because those players are playing in front of 30,000 people. You know, now they've got the social media which follows. You know, there's so much going around in those players' heads, and as a manager, you know, and the coaches, you know, you're very important for them in the way you get your message across. So yeah, you know, lots of managers I've worked with, the good and the bad, and I know how I operated at my best, and that's what I tried to bring into my managerial career when I was starting at Colchester. And I remember one particular player when I was a manager, my first season, and the goalkeeper was having a particularly bad time. And afterwards, I'd say very little to him, but then pull him in on Monday and say, look, we need to work on this. There's a couple of things. And one of the senior players said to me, "I can't believe you don't have a go at the keeper. Like, you're letting him off the hook." And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "But I'm doing it my way. I want to help him because he's a very good keeper and he's young." And then a month later, this senior player had a really poor first half, and I did lose my cool in the dressing room and had a real go at him at half time. And on the Monday, he knocked on my door. He said, "Gaffer, I can't believe you had a go at me in front of the rest of the players." I said, "All right, so it was all right for you to tell me to have a go at the goalkeeper, but now I've done it to you. It's not the right thing to do." I said, "So I kind of lost my cool with you, and probably shouldn't have done that. This is the reason it happened. But you understand how that impacted on you, and you've been in the game a long time. So you can imagine if I spoke like that all the time to the young players, how damaging it could be." So in that, there's a balance where, if someone has not worked hard or not, the rest of the group need to know that you've seen that, and quite often it might be because they're not playing in the next game. But you don't need to kind of really go overboard in the dressing room. And there's ways of getting your point across. And I found myself that you've got to be honest, you've got to be straight. People like that, but sometimes that can be in a one-to-one situation.
It's often not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think there's still a place that you can shout and be on a player. But I think something we've spoken about is to differentiate when that's being assertive. It's coming from a place of love and you want the best for the team and the player, and it being aggression. I think the two have a different quality. You can still shout and be assertive and be calm and centered in that, and it'd be fine, and players, I think, respond. But I think when it tips into becoming almost personal, and we've all been there, I think that's when it can detract from the message and a player can go backwards. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean you're always talking calm, and it's just checking in. Where is this coming from within myself? Is this a knee-jerk reaction versus actually this does in the moment feel right to just just get a bit on it?
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a time and a place where what you say hopefully is going to impact positively. And there's certain players you can sometimes straight talking is what's required. But even with that, it's the wording of it.
Yeah,
if you get personal, then it can go the other way. I can remember over the years, at certain points in seasons, quite often if we were having a bad season, a club would bring in a psychologist and sit everybody together. But I can't remember that ever having a positive impact in that group situation. So I learned from that situation as well. So was the psychologist really involved in, no, not really in my career. It was just myself learning, what I needed and which managers got the best out of me. And also being in dressing rooms and seeing what impacted on players around me. And I think, it wasn't really a big thing, but I think, you look in football that golf, tennis players, sports psychologists is so important, isn't it? And I think football's been quite late to really utilise the resource. And a lot of clubs are obviously academies now, have all got psychology, But what's important is that, it's delivered the right way. I think that's key, and that's what we've tried to work on and evolved over the years, haven't we, Sam? But there is some principles which we haven't changed since day one, but we also have evolved in certain situations.
Yeah, I think how we've used sports psychology has changed. There were periods of time where I was that sports psychologist, where I'd want to give them a tip or a technique to get them in the right headspace. But they'd always want to come back for more. They'd always want something else. Or what you got for me? Can you get me ready for the match? And I did feel a bit of a fraud, really. I thought I might actually help it sometimes. Yeah. I'm actually helping this player here, or are they just becoming reliant upon me?
Yeah.
And I think that has been the evolution of certainly. I think our discussions is actually trying to take the mind out of the equation, get help the player get out the way of themselves, so to speak, so the football can just flood out and that freedom and that expression can show up. And I think, like the point you made, Gaffer, about this idea that the psychologist shows up when something isn't going right, comes from a deficit model. It's like, all right, Houston, we got a problem here, we better fix it. And that's not a good message to tell any player, because now I'm in my head thinking, right, I've got to sort my head out, there's a problem. Now I'm putting more energy into that, which is detracting from the football. And that, I think, that's the true definition of a slump. If I'm now locked in my head trying to get back to where I was, then I've seen players drop out of good careers and keep seeking and looking and trying to fix and remedy. So I think what we're doing here is quite unique in the sense that it's a little bit untraditional in that way, that I still think some approaches are still from this position, let's get you in the right headspace. And I think straight away you're already at -1 there, because I'm now coming in saying, right, let's work on X, when really, which is why
the whole environment.
It's the whole environment. It's an exploration. Culture, it's chipping in. It's being subtle, reminding the player that if you are engaging in psychology, it's an exploration of mind. It's not trying to extract and get something from it in a quick fix. The players who are genuinely interested in that exploration are the ones who get the best results, because they're intrinsically motivated to explore and learn about themselves and commit. The ones that just thought, let's get a quick fix here, you know, you might get a little moment of relief and a little bump up, but it's not sustainable long term. And when I think some of our best case studies over the years, it's the ones that genuinely enjoy showing up, exploring, examining their performance, looking how mind plays out in different scenarios. They're the ones 100% of the time get better. Those that dip in and out might get a little buzz sort of few moment and get back on track, but have we left those players with something sustainable and long lasting? Probably not.
I think that's the challenge of the job and what we're in the sport for, to be in those moments where you are challenging at the top of the table. And I enjoy that. Like I said, I with all the staff, and it's getting the players to just turn up in the big moments is absolutely key. And if you're in sport, you've got to expect there's going to be pressurized situations, you know, and the higher up you go, the more exposure there is. So you're in the sport to be in those moments. So you can't say, oh, now we're there, I'm not enjoying this, because that's what we're working towards. So when you get there, it's important as a staff, wow, look where we are, come on, let's make the most of this. Let's make sure that come the end of the season, we say, when it got to that period, we maintained our clarity. We kept our process kind of orientation in terms of the performances. And if it's successful, great. But, you know, I want to be on holiday thinking, you know, we continue to do the right things even in those pressured moments. And I think that's key. Just don't change, you know, just keep it light. And just kind of trying to get the players to perform at the best when the pressure's on, and just locking down onto, you know, all the big games we've had at Wrexham, you know, Boreham Wood, you know, the game which got Wrexham out of the National League after 15 years. We went 1-0 down after 20 seconds. You know, but we knew the process of how we had to go about to win that game, and the players stuck to it to the letter, and we ended up winning the game. Now, if after 20 seconds, when we got the goal down, everyone started to go off script and become frantic, we wouldn't have got promoted. But we had it kind of ingrained in the lads that, you know, we know how to win this match, and whatever happens, you know, we've got to continue. I think the weekend was interesting as Sheffield Wednesday, because obviously we were going to a team which are rooted at the bottom of the division, and the expectation was to go and win. So leading up to the game, I had a chat with the lads and I said, in my time at Wrexham, or our time at Wrexham, there's been lots of these games where we've had these games, and one was Dover away. And I said, you may laugh, there's 800 people there in the National League, and they were relegated, and we went there and we kept playing the right way. The goalkeeper makes saves. In the end, we won 1-0 with a scrappy goal. And I remember the press saying to me, wow, you made hard work of that. And I said, no, I'm absolutely delighted, because despite it not going our way, the lads continued to do what we knew we had to do to win, and we finally got there. And then there was another example, one of the players, Matty James, spoke about, which was Crawley away last year, another team at the bottom, we're at the top. We're 1-0 up away from home, and one of their players scores from 40 yards. The most amazing goal you've ever seen. You'll never score another goal like it. So you've got to expect something may go against you as well in those games, like the Boreham Wood goal. But when it does, okay, reset as a team. We know the game plan doesn't change. The game plan only changes if we make substitutions and change the tactically on the pitch. So yeah, I think in the pressure moments, I want to enjoy it personally. I want to turn up at Sheffield Wednesday and get up in the morning, go for my run, enjoy some fresh air, and I want to go there and I want to go and enjoy the day. And I always say to the lads, we'll only enjoy the day if we perform the way we've set out to do in training, and it might not result in a win. But I say to Sam a lot that if I drive home and we haven't got the right result, but we've performed in the way we set out to do, and the players look in a good place and the decision maker's good, but something's gone against us on the day, I wake up the next day, I'm absolutely fine. When I get frustrated is when we've done something different, or we haven't got the group where we wanted them to be mentally. That's when I kind of will wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and think, we got something wrong this week.
But, I think if a player makes a song and dance out of pressure, it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
It's again, the environment's changing. There's more fans, but I'm a little bit on the position that pressure's a bit of a myth. It's sort of it's constructed by the mind. It's constructed by that individual, because if pressure was a thing, everyone would feel it. Yeah. But some players love it, some players feel it, some players don't. So it's something happening within our own experience. And what I think is happening in that experience is you're going to feel pressure if you're outcome orientated.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to feel pressure if it's about the 3 points and this is the big moment and we've got to deliver. That's when, like you say, you concede in, the first couple of minutes. That's when you can go under. But if a player's been drilled in throughout the week, stay on the script, do what you need to do, then when that heat rises in those moments, and that it does, nothing changes. And there was one coach who said it's like, the hard work's in the week, and that Saturday, when that Saturday comes, that's your cherry on top. It's kind of like an effect. It's a byproduct of all those days of work and discipline and listening and applying yourself in the right way. That come Saturday, that's the celebration. That's the celebration, to be free, to know that you've been in the trenches, you've worked hard, you've conducted yourself in the right way, not got complacent, been disciplined, and then that Saturday is the sum of those parts.